Hello everybody, my name is Max, and I'm so excited to show you the first ever dinosaur figure that I've created. This is my handmade real feel rubber Mapusaurus. However, before we take a closer look at this figure, I want to give you a bit of the history as to how this Mapusaurus came to be and what inspired me to make it. For as long as I can remember, I've always loved reptiles, snakes, lizards, crocodilians, and of course, dinosaurs. I have also loved collecting dinosaur and prehistoric animal toys for equally as long. As you can probably guess, I'm also crazy about Jurassic Park. Growing up here in South Africa during the 90s, we never really had access to the incredible Jurassic Park toys created by Kenner. The closest we could get were the Reign of the Dinosaur toys from Wowee, which came out a bit later. These toys were not nearly as well made as the original Jurassic Park toys. However, they did share one thing in common: the unique real feel rubber skin of these figures. The more realistic feel of these toys absolutely captivated me. They just feel so different, almost like you were holding a real miniature dinosaur in your hands. Over the years, this gimmick did pop up a few more times in other dinosaur toys, but never to the same great effect created by Kenner. Personally, the hard plastic feel of the vast majority of other dinosaur toys just can't compare. Growing up, I've always dreamt of creating my very own dinosaurs with that classic rubber feel of Kenner's master creations. However, I had no idea where to begin. Over many years, this dream has always been at the back of my mind until one day everything changed. This is when I first stumbled onto one of Marco Make's videos. If you've never heard of Marco before, you have to check him out. He is a fantastic artist and literally one of the nicest guys in the world, who is equally passionate about dinosaurs as I am. Best and most bewildering of all, Marco makes dinosaur toys, and not just any toys. He creates them out of rubber, just like the Kenner figures of old. Better still, Marco made videos on how he created his figures. I couldn't believe it. By watching Marco's videos, I was finally able to make my dream come true and create my very own dinosaur figures. Now it was time to decide on my first species. From the start, I knew that I didn't want to just make a figure of another very well-known dinosaur, such as T-Rex. I wanted to give some love to more obscure species that most people don't even know ever existed. There are countless prehistoric animals who have never been given the limelight before and absolutely deserve to be honored and appreciated. After a long and difficult time of deciding on which animal to choose, I decided to go for the gigantic South American carnivore, Mapusaurus. Despite being one of the largest carnivores to ever live, Mapusaurus has hardly ever been depicted in any dinosaur media, often losing out to its more famous relative Giganotosaurus. In fact, the whole Carcharodontosaurid clade to which Mapusaurus belongs is vastly underappreciated, which only fueled my passion to create these figures even more. Now that the decision was made, and with Marco's videos on standby, I began to sculpt my Mapusaurus. I had never sculpted anything before in my life, and in the beginning I really struggled. My work looked absolutely awful, but I just kept on trying. The milliput putty I was working with was a bit of a challenge at first, as the putty dries rock solid after a few hours. After many failed attempts with the head, I finally started to get the hang of what I was trying to do. It was really hard, and I had to scrape away and resculpt many different parts of the figure so many times. I nearly completely gave up on many occasions, but I just kept on going, little bit by little bit every day. It eventually took me a whole year to finish sculpting my Mapusaurus figure. Now that the figure's sculpt was complete, I needed to find out how to mold and cast my creation. I watched how Marco did it in his videos, but the whole process looked very tricky. I'm also very sensitive to strong smells and really didn't want to work with those powerful chemicals. Thankfully, my aunt knew an artist who worked with molds not too far away from me. After I contacted her, she introduced me to the perfect person who molds and casts for me to this day. Her name is Erica, and she is an extremely talented person. She creates visual effects and props for movies, as well as creating rubber prosthetics for people who have lost limbs. She was just the person I needed. She has had plenty of experience working with rubber. After I explained to her what I wanted to do, and after showing her the 1993 Kenner Red Rex, she got started right away. There were quite a few hiccups at first. The biggest challenge was finding which type of rubber to go with that felt similar to the Kenner figures and could be painted with water-based acrylics. It is incredibly hard to get paint to adhere to rubber. It took many failed attempts, time, blood, sweat, tears, and a lot of incredible help from Marco himself. But eventually we came to a recipe that works for us. We finally found a great rubber which feels just like the classic figures, and it holds water-based acrylic paint very well. I also created a website to sell the figures and designed and drew my very own box for the Mapusaurus. It was a long and hard road, but we were finally ready to get my first figure out into the world. The first thing I wanted to do was send a Mapusaurus to Marco as a thank you for all the help he gave me and for being so very patient with all my many questions. I also wanted to send one to Andy's dinosaur reviews. If you love dinosaur toys, you've bound to have seen Andy's channel. Andy is one of the world's top dinosaur toy reviewers, and just like Marco, he is one of the nicest guys in the world. I emailed Andy and he very kindly said he would review my Mapusaurus. However, at the time we didn't have a courier service to send the figure over to him in the USA. The postal services here in South Africa all work on Africa time and are most unreliable. So it's much better to rather send things through an overseas courier. Although at the time I couldn't afford to send it through one of these international shipping companies. But as luck would have it, our next door neighbor was actually flying to the USA in the next few days. She very kindly took our first Mapusaurus over to Andy for us. Unfortunately, the box and the figure did get beat up a lot during the journey. By the time Andy received the figure, it was in really bad shape. The box was badly bent, the figure wouldn't stand, and many of the teeth were broken. Horror of horrors. Despite this, Andy was really kind in his review, and so many people who watched the video liked the figure. After that, we went back to the drawing board. I re-sculpted the Mapu's feet and made a stand to give the figure better stability. We then did more tinkering with the paints to make the adhesion even better. Found a better, stronger and less brittle plastic to use for the teeth. I also found a new packaging company who could create much stronger boxes for the figure and keep it safe during transit. I had to make the figure and its packaging as perfect as possible before we could send one to Marco. Once we felt that the figure had finally been perfected, I began to make a plan to get one to Marco in the UK. Although this time I was going to make sure the figure arrived safely. Instead of someone else taking it overseas for me, I decided to deliver it in person directly to Marco himself. I have family members who also live in the UK who offered to give me accommodation while I was visiting. So all I had to do was book my ticket and I was off to Britain with a thoroughly wrapped Mapusaurus by my side. After a long flight, I was finally able to meet Marco himself and thank him for helping me to make this dream come true. Marco and his girlfriend Sora are truly the most incredible people you'll ever meet. They were so incredibly kind to me and gave me so many incredible gifts. Once I got back home, Marco put a review of my Mapusaurus up on his YouTube channel and I just couldn't believe it. After watching his videos for so long, I was actually seeing my very own handmade dinosaur on his channel. I was completely over the moon. After the review went up, we got so many orders and we quickly got to work creating more Mapus. I still can't believe people actually like my figure and what I'm doing. It really has been such a dream come true. Since then, we've sent more Mapusaurus overseas, and it's turning into a real functioning business. I also made sure to send Andy a replacement figure to apologize for the problems with the first one I sent. He very kindly then made a follow-up video on the figure showing off the new improvements and the stronger box. Things have been going up, and I just feel like the happiest man in the world. It's such an incredible feeling to be able to share this love and passion with prehistoric life with the world. My dream finally came true, and I want to thank all the people who have helped me get here. Now let's take a look at the Mapusaurus itself. Before we take it out and have a closer look, let's check out the box. I designed and drew the artwork for the packaging myself, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. I was heavily inspired by the box art of Kenner's classic Jurassic Park toys, with that gorgeous tropical warm red sunset design which featured across all their packaging. Looking at the front of the box, we have a Mapusaurus charging in from the right. Directly above, we have a label saying scientifically accurate dinosaur with real feel skin. On the bottom right, you can see my Reptimax logo, and next to that, the name of the species, Mapusaurus, loud and proud. Looking at the right side of the box, we see the logo again, with the proudly made in South Africa and handmade stamp on either side. Directly above is a picture of the Mapusaurus prototype. The final figure, as we will soon see, looks quite different from the first one ever made. On the left side, we have a drawing of a Mapusaurus skeleton alongside a 1.8 meter tall human. Below we have a short description of Mapusaurus with the logo and the same information from the other side. On top of the box we have a nice big picture of the prototype, the name and the same info as before. Now let's have a look at the back of the box. Here we can see a small diorama I put together with the Mapusaurus prototype standing over his sauropod prey, in this case the reign of the dinosaur Brachiosaurus. Below we have another label saying that this is a posable, scientifically accurate Mapusaurus. Below that we have some extra information about the figure and Reptimax. On the right we have drawings of all the other prehistoric animals which I'm going to make into figures for Series 1 of my Mesozoic range. Some of these creatures have already been sculpted and should be released very soon. If you are a fan of Kenner's classic Jurassic toys, you can probably tell that I designed this box in homage to their 1993 packaging. Although I was not fortunate enough to grow up with their amazing toy line, I absolutely love their fantastic toys, which have always been a great inspiration to me. Now let's take a look at the Mapusaurus itself. You can open the box from the top and lift the figure out. Once you take the figure out of the packaging, you will notice that it is strapped to a free background artwork, along with an additional piece which you can use to display behind your Mapusaurus on your shelf. Gently cut through the cable ties and your figure will be free. I placed little pieces of bubble wrap where the straps held the figure in order to prevent any accidental scratches on the paint. You will also find a stand in the box if you decide to add one on to your purchase. You will see that the dinosaur's tail is curled. Just like the classic Kenner Red Rex, I did this in order to fit the Mapusaurus's proportionately long tail inside the box. Although this is unfortunate, I do this to be able to fit the figure in a smaller box, which helps to keep the cost of the packaging down. I have thought of giving my larger figures clip-on tails similar to Mattel's Jurassic World dinosaurs and Beasts of the Mesozoic figures. However, it would then give the figure an ugly seam line, which I'd really like to avoid. I would much rather have a long continuous tail with a bendy wire inside, just like the beautiful old Kenner figures. You can easily uncurl the tail and bend it back into its correct position once in hand. Looking at the figure, your eye is probably drawn straight away to those stunning red legs and the red horns above the Mapu's eyes. I decided to give the Mapusaurus these vibrant colors because many of the living dinosaurs of today have stunning colorations. It is highly likely that ancient non-avian dinosaurs probably had much more colorful appearances too. I think of my Mapusaurus as being a male adorned with these striking colors to attract females, which also helps him to stand out from other dinosaur toys. Just like the classic Kenner figures, this dinosaur is made entirely out of rubber, aside from the teeth, which are harder plastic. I am really so thrilled with how we were able to recreate the exact same feel as the Kenner figures. It really feels like you're holding a miniature dinosaur in your hands. It's just so cool. Taking a closer look at the head, you can see those very sharp teeth separately cast in an off-white color, with a tiny blue tongue towards the back of the mouth. I tried my best to sculpt every little scale on the head as best as I could. You can see the red coloration above on the horns and running down along to the nose. The eye is painted orange with a round black pupil with a darker brown surrounding the whole eye to help it stand out. The jaw is movable and can be opened wider and closed shut, although some Mapusaurus figures will have tighter jaws than others. Moving down the neck and onto the arms, you'll notice that the Mapusaurus has some little spurs running down the back of the arms. I was inspired to do this after thinking that many male theropods may have used their tiny arms in some sort of mating display to attract females. This can best be seen in Prehistoric Planet's dancing Carnotaurus scene. Thus, the little speculative display spurs are colored red just like the legs and horns on the head. Looking towards the legs, you will notice that they are cast in a harder, more rigid rubber. The original Kenner toys, which this figure is based on, did have solid plastic back legs to help with the stability of their bipedal dinosaurs. I was hoping to originally do something like this, however we weren't able to find a suitable plastic or resin here in South Africa to use for the Mapu's back legs, so opted for a harder rubber instead. I believe this actually worked in our favor as it just gives our figure even more of a real feel texture. On the underside of the foot you can see my Reptimax signature. The dinosaur doesn't stand very well on its own, but this can be sorted out if you decide on adding a stand to your order. It works quite well with the dinosaur resting its chest on the Perspex holder. Previously, as seen, the tail has a bendy wire inside it, which also extends down the back of the figure. This allows you to bend the tail in any position you like, although the wire is quite tough to manipulate. You can also move the arms, back legs, and jaw as previously mentioned. For a size comparison, here is the Mapusaurus next to some of the old Jurassic Park Kenner figures who inspired it, such as the Big Red Rex, Bull T-Rex, Triceratops, and Velociraptor. Here he is alongside a 1/18th scale orc figure, next to Mattel's epic roaring T-Rex, Mattel's awful Giganotosaurus, and absolutely stunning 1/18th scale Dino Riders inspired Tyrannosaurus Rex from Beasts of the Mesozoic. If you are interested in getting one of these Mapusaurus figures for yourself, the figure is selling for $299. If you would like to add an optional stand, that will be an additional $16. If you would like your Mapusaurus to arrive in its own original packaging, designed by me, that'll be another $63. However, if you would like to just purchase the figure on its own, then your figure will be sent to you loose in a thoroughly bubble-wrapped DHL box. Please have a look at my website reptimax.co.za and submit an inquiry if you'd like to find out the shipping cost to your location and order a figure for yourself. It typically takes 2 to 3 weeks to create a Mapusaurus figure. I'll keep you updated through the process and will let you know once the figure is ready to ship. I want to give a massive thank you to Marco Makes for helping me to make this lifelong dream come true, and for creating such a wonderful review of my figure on his channel. I also want to thank Andy's Dinosaur Reviews for reviewing my Mapusaurus and for being so incredibly kind to me. Please check them both out if you haven't already. If you would like to see more updates from me, please don't forget to subscribe and check me out on Instagram. Like I said earlier, I've got more new species which should be ready to be revealed very soon, so stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.